We both saw a brilliant film.
Yes, we did.
And that is one of the things we're going to be talking about in a sort of wider...
We are. We're going to be talking about Backrooms and Obsession for a number of reasons. We're also going to be talking about what I would say for our podcast and our listeners might be quite a fun story, which is the story of MobLand.
Has Tom Hardy been fired or not fired from MobLand?
Cliffhanger.
And we're also going to be talking about the Belle Burden memoir of her marriage breakdown, Strangers, is like an absolutely monster hit. And like all monster hits, it has now got a backlash. We're going to be digging into why.
The Rest is Entertainment is presented by Octopus Energy. Now, the moment someone becomes properly famous, they stop travelling as a person and they start travelling as a situation. And yes, I am talking about the world of entourages.
It's amazing. Anytime you do a TV show when someone properly famous comes on, it's sort of, you can just have a spread bet as to how many people they're going to bring with them.
Most people don't actually need a bodyguard and a fixer and a straw lady, but not having to start from scratch every single time you get in contact with someone is actually undeniably appealing.
So Octopus Energy, anytime you ever ring any company, you start from scratch right from the beginning again. With Octopus Energy, they recognize your number. And that goes through to a very, very small team of around 10 people who are there to deal with you. So you'll almost certainly be dealing with someone who you have dealt with before. That's the Octopus Energy entourage that they've built around you.
A great satisfaction not having to tell your story for new every single time, which I think most major celebrities also feel.
Now, Backrooms is a horror movie. It came out this weekend, and we talk a lot about tracking on this show. Hollywood tends to be able to predict how a movie is going to open, how well it's going to do. And it's a very cheap movie, this $10 million. And the tracking first came out and said, this movie is going to make $25 million. And everyone's like, whoa, this is crazy.
On its opening weekend.
And then about 2 weeks after that, they said, oh no, hold on. It's not going to make $25 million. We reckon it's going to make $45 million. This super cheap movie, which we're going to talk all about, we think it's going to make $45 million. It opened this weekend. It did not make $25 million. It did not make $45 million. It made $81 million, the third biggest opening of the year behind Mario and Michael Jackson. Where has this movie come from? Why has it been so successful? And what does that mean?
Okay, well, this is an A24 movie. It's actually A24's biggest opening now of all time.
It's going to be their biggest movie by a long way.
Yeah, it's the second biggest horror opening of all time, only after Stephen King's It.
Yeah.
It stars Chiwetel Ejiofor and Renata Reinsve. It's directed and created by a guy called Kane Parsons.
And this is where it gets interesting.
This is where it gets interesting. By the way, he's 20.
Yeah.
He is not only the youngest director ever to have been given a studio film, so beating people like Brian De Palma, Orson Welles. He is the youngest director ever to have a #1 film. He is an unbelievable YouTube native, and he was called Kane Pixels on YouTube, and he made lots and lots of interesting things, including music. He co-creates the score for this film. And one of the things that he made was called The Backrooms found footage when he was 16. It's a sort of 9-minute horror short, and it went viral.
And it's based off a single still posted on the internet, isn't it?
What was the original Backrooms? The original Backrooms is there was an internet sort of fascination with liminal spaces, which I suppose are sort of empty spaces, sometimes transitional spaces, abandoned spaces.
Yeah.
Strangely purposeless.
We all love that sort of stuff. Like you'll open a little iron door in a tube station and wonder what's behind it.
The Backrooms was an aesthetic, and it grew out of a 4chan thread in 2019.
Unbelievable.
Where somebody said, post disquieting images that just feel off. And they added this photo, is essentially the entire aesthetic of the Backrooms now, that is, you can see this film. And by the way, it is an unbelievable production design. I thought it was, the art direction is beyond. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
But
it should win all the awards.
Photo, I think it was an abandoned store in Oshkosh,
well, you don't know
Wisconsin.
You didn't know what it was. Abandoned. It was not clear at that light. It's like, was it abandoned offices, a hotel? Yeah, they later discover it was an abandoned furniture store in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. And there are all these
I would like to live in Oshkosh. Sorry, that's an absolute sidebar.
Yeah.
But that's a cool place name.
It's a good place name. Yeah. I wouldn't like to, anyway. But someone had said about And it had this sort of weird yellow light and a kind of Dutch angle to it all. And somebody said, if you're not careful and you no clip out of reality, no clip is a gaming term where you kind of can walk through walls or whatever it is, in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the back rooms where it's nothing but the stink of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it has sure as hell heard you.
And by the way, that's the movie.
Yeah, well, that's me. But they call it creepypasta, but it's kind of like one of those urban legend online ghost stories. And it was collaborative and everyone could add to it. And people expanded this whole, it became this whole universe, and people were posting their own sort of liminal spaces. It really took off in the sort of early 2020s, this particular thing. And the idea of these kind of creepy liminal spaces. Yeah, when we couldn't go anywhere. And there had been a website that I'd remembered from, honestly, 25 years ago called UK Entrances to Hell. And I had to check this weekend, is it still there? Go online and it's like this incredibly like basic website, and you'll see what someone's done. People kept adding weird doorways or blocked in things, and they give them names and they say that they're entrances to hell. So there's a sort of element of that, like everyone can join in, everyone can whatever. But it became a sort of subculture of popular imagination. And Kane Parsons, who's like extremely online, said he's interested in why people are drawn to that, because it's kind of like you've been there before. Like he calls it a tainted nostalgia or a type of purgatory.
And by the way, he's like 16 when he's starting off with this. So where he's getting tainted nostalgia from.
But yeah,
I don't know.
Exactly. But you can see how influential it is, because Dan Erickson, who created Severance, and if you've seen Severance and you haven't seen the Backrooms, you'll understand that idea of these kind of corridors, weird office space, whatever it is. And Dan Erickson says that the internet sort of subculture of the Backrooms really influenced Severance.
Yeah, I mean, you can see.
Yeah. But also those things are influenced by kind of our cultural memories of things like The Shining, which is full of corridors. Again, there's a lot of sort of weird space in that film.
Yeah, the artist Mike Nelson used to just fill sort of whole rooms with so you've been an unusual, weird back room that wasn't quite right. Things that are slightly off.
Lots of people created things based on this idea. And his 9-minute short, they went the sort of most viral. He was offered a deal by A24.
His shorts, by the way, were digital animation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he used like Blender and something else to kind of create it. He didn't. Yeah. And now they've built it, and they've built like 33,000 square foot of these sets, and it's all, they've realized it, and it's all a practical set. But there is obviously some CGI and what have you. But obviously, so many people have gone. They've spent very little on the marketing. They've spent about 10 million, but they've done it all in the native areas where this thing sprung from. So when I went on Friday, I went to the earliest possible screening I could find, which was at 3:45 on a Friday. The cinema was full of, I would say, 18 to 25-year-olds, like obsessed, really wanting to see it. We're going to talk more about horror in general as this thing, as a place where the things that we want to happen are happening.
Well, here's the other thing. One film is a phenomenon, 2 films is a movement. And the other film is Obsession. And that's made by Curry Barker, who is 26. He must have thought he was pretty cool making a movie at 26. Now, Obsession cost $750,000, which is very, very, very cheap for a movie. It has, in the last 3 weeks, made over $100 million. 3 weeks in a row, its box office take has gone up. And you might go, yeah, but that happens with lots of films because people go see them and then they like them. Everything does best in week 1. Everything. To do better in week 2 is almost unheard of. To do better in week 3, do you know the last film to do that, to go up 3 weeks in a row?
Is it something like E.T.?
E.T. in 1982. Yeah. Occasionally at Christmas movies go up. But other than that, that's the last movie to do it. An Obsession, £750,000 it cost. It has made over $100 million. Again, a 26-year-old director who absolutely honed his skill on YouTube.
And it's a horror. Again, it's a horror. It's part of the sort of YouTube to cinema pipeline that obviously includes Kane Parsons. But we talked about Markiplier, who made that film Iron Lung, which I think actually was quite expensive by some standards. It was $3 million. It made $51 million. Hayley Boston, who does the TV show for Netflix called Something Very Bad's Going to Happen.
The Philippe brothers in Australia.
Yes.
There's lots of good examples.
Hayley Boston had only ever been on a film on a set once, on a sort of 2-week placement as a runner. She is now the showrunner of a massive Netflix show.
Well, the thing I love most about Kane Parsons, he said, I didn't really watch films because why would I? Because I had all the entertainment I needed. I saw it I think it was in the New Yorker, and he admitted to not watching Blue Velvet, and they'd gone, Are you kidding? You haven't watched Blue Velvet? And you know what? Right there is the issue about why cinema went wrong and
Yes.
where it has to go next.
It's interesting that lots of them start in the found footage horror genre, and they're all really young. One of the things that I think is very interesting about these people is that they massively understand audience, because if you put things on YouTube, you sadly cannot kid yourself about audience. You understand a lot of things very quickly.
Well, it's the Beatles playing Hamburg for 2 years, isn't it? It's night after night after night, you see exactly what works and what doesn't work and why. And they've had, without even thinking about it, it's just what they've been doing in their bedrooms for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And every single time they see exactly what works and what doesn't. And that's not, by the way, a sort of cynical eye. It is actually, if you're a creative person at all, getting that kind of feedback is incredibly instructive sometimes, because you're still being your creative self. You're just going, oh, do you know what? I won't make that single mistake though. Or I'll take the fact that they liked that and I'm going to twist it in this direction. So I
And a lot of these things they built, it's really interesting. Kane Parsons was still making backroom stuff for YouTube for 2 years of the development of this movie.
Yeah.
I think they shot it in about 6 weeks last summer, and he kind of stops in about May because they're obviously starting to shoot in July. But he wants to then expand it. He wants to make maybe a 9-part limited series about it. But what's fascinating, I definitely agree with you, is that they haven't often seen any of these things. They've seen like the parodies of things.
Yeah.
Corey Barker said he had seen, the Treehouse of Horror, which the Simpsons do their Halloween episode every year. He saw a 1991 one, which is a monkey's paw thing, and said, oh, that changed my life. Because in the same way that, have they seen The Shining? Not really.
But you've seen so many takeoffs of The Shining.
It's conceivable they've seen the Ready Player One scene where all the players storm the Overlook Hotel and they're all making in-jokes about room 237 or whatever it is. It's conceivable that maybe they've had those experiences, but they often haven't seen the original thing. And the reactions, I think, to the work is quite fascinating. It's really weird. This film obviously is a huge hit, but it's got a B- cinema score.
Yeah.
And that tells you a lot about.
By the way, that's the cinema score is you ask people who've been to see the movie what they thought of it.
The critics like it.
The critics like it. Of course they do, because it's going to save Hollywood.
But he's had to serve 2 audiences.
Yeah.
The incredibly invested sort of fan community who's to say, oh no, but then he didn't include this, or he should have included that, or he's deviated here.
We had a few walkouts in our screening of people who literally couldn't sit still at any point before they walked out, and then walked out. I think it was just, I think they couldn't take how long it was. And how, I think they found something about the...
and there are people saying, well, he doesn't own this, which is kind of like, okay, well
Steven Spielberg doesn't own sharks.
No, and no one owns folklore. It's just one of those things, and if you're the one who's made it. But I do think that the genre itself, horror, which we've talked a lot about on the podcast, it is the place that the thing we say we want to happen is happening. People are not spending huge amounts of money on films, even on the marketing. They are filling the theatres with people who want to have a communal experience, who are young, who are hyper engaged.
I think it's 74% under 34, the audience for Backrooms in the US.
I was genuinely twice as old as pretty much as anyone else in the cinema.
We were as well.
Everyone was young. Everyone was
great.
young. I went with a 15-year-old, so that was fine.
Because normally I go and watch art house things, and we're always the youngest people there. We're like, oh, this is nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this time it was like, but also no one on their phones, no one, absolutely no nonsense. People who, it was an absolute treat.
This is what we say we want to happen. And it's really interesting how many of the kind of big name directors who are young, who have done stuff in horror, Ryan Coogler, Zach Cregger, Jordan Peele. You're doing things in horror. When people saw Get Out, they were like, all right, this is a horror movie, but it's sort of about race, and it's, people are tackling themes in horror that it's not just slasher stuff. There's a movie I'm really looking forward to later this summer called Teenage Love. I don't know if you saw that as a trailer as yours, but I'm dying for it.
Their Disclosure Day as the trailer. The trailers were terrifying.
Oh, no, the trailers are, Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. I'm dying for this. With Gillian Anderson and Hannah Einbinder, and it's like a meta horror remake thing. But that, if you look at it, you can see it's incredibly sort of creative and prestige, and this is why.
Well, we've got Scary Movie 6 coming out next week, which again might do absolutely enormous numbers.
But it's got so much to satirise because we are in the era, as we said before, of prestige horror.
Yeah.
This is like auteurs are making horror, and they always have done to some degree because people could get started cheaply in the genre. But actually
also,
now,
The Shining is horror.
Yes.
And that's Kubrick. I mean, you know, people, it's a great format
But
to
it's
work in.
particularly now where
Yeah.
almost all of them, with I would say someone like obviously Greta Gerwig hasn't done it, but a lot of the young directors are all
Although
have
we
all
haven't
done
seen
it.
her Chronicles
the
of
guys,
Narnia
the men
yet.
have all
It
done
might
it.
be. It might be terrifying.
Yeah, which would be a way to go with it.
But so there's the horror thing, but I think in some ways even more interesting is this idea of, you know, cinema has been made by a certain generation for a certain generation for a very, very long time. And, you know, we understand where the sequels come from. And for a long time they went, oh no, we understand what young people like. They like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Great, we've got that covered. And actually, because that audience was not being served, they were serving themselves and they were doing something completely underground that anyone who was under 16 was seeing day in, day out. But anyone who was over 40 was not seeing. And all of those nascent careers are now coming to fruition. And they don't have to, by the way, go into multiplexes, other than it's quite a nice way. Kane Parsons, let's assume he's going to make $25 million from this, something like that. So it's a nice way to make $25 million if you built that stuff up online. But they don't have to. The message in music, in television, in film, and everything these days is these people do not have to go mainstream. They don't have to do it. And also, they're not even that interested in going mainstream. That fish you can dangle that says, oh, you could come and do a Channel 4 series now if you want. They go, I'm literally driving a Maserati. I don't know what. And also, all of my audience, all the people I want to impress and entertain are on the platform that I'm on. And they're not on the platform that you need me, I don't need you. And in the last few years, I know we've seen that happen gradually, but it has completely changed now. The ecosystem has completely changed.
Yes, but surfacing stories and
this is
creators which people are already interested in, which is a form of known IP, you know, rather than the IP of just like, oh, how about we find a different way to do Spider-Man?
Yes, good idea.
The known IP is kind of percolated through the internet. People see it all the time.
Yeah.
And finding these people, but you have to say that Hollywood executives and the people with money, and you don't need much money as we're showing, have not done a great job of finding those people. They are there. We know the audience is there. How many horror movies have to come out each year which do incredibly well and which make so many multiples of their budget back? Not like if another film, you know, if very expensive films do well, they might make 3 times the budget back. I mean, these films are doing...
Obsessions has made about 170 times its budget now.
It's like those things like Long Legs or whatever, those the sort of micro budget that become absolutely massive. And it's almost without exception in this genre. And young people are going to cinemas, as I say. All the things that people say they want to happen are happening. And yet, to some degree, they are still not being served and they're still not finding those creators. I think after this, surely it's somebody's job in every single studio to come up with people like this.
I was talking to a TV producer the other day. He said, when we spoke about microdramas a long time ago, he said it's the first time I'd heard people talking about them. He said, I now do not go into a single meeting in any drama department of any company anywhere where they don't first start talking about microdramas. It's all anyone talks about. Now, the thing you can see about Backrooms, by the way, we haven't reviewed it, which we should do. We'll get onto whether we enjoyed it or not. But the one thing you definitely know, firstly, there's going to be great opportunities for a new generation of filmmakers in the same way that you had that incredible generation of filmmakers who launched themselves in the 70s. This is a very different generation. But secondly, my God, there's going to be some bad movies coming out of this. Yeah. Because everyone's going to chase it.
Yes.
That's the problem.
And they don't know what they're chasing because they're not natives themselves. As in, I'm talking about the Narni people and the big executives who are much, much older.
Yeah. And, you know, everyone's going to be looking for the new Curry Barker and Kane Parsons now. And there will be some out there, but there will be more that are not. Oh my God, there's going to be some shocking films coming out. But then there always have been. What did you make of the film?
I absolutely loved it. It's a huge mood and I haven't stopped thinking about it since. I think there's something about it that's so sort of open-ended.
Yeah.
I won't say any more because I don't want to do any spoilers, but there's something about it that's so open-ended.
It's quite hard to give spoilers in a funny kind of way.
Yeah.
It's a real vibe of a movie.
Just
isn't it?
The aesthetic, and as I say, I thought the art direction, the production design was unbelievable. I mean, extraordinary, and it seeps into you.
I thought it was. Ingrid watched lots of it. You know, there's always going to be a jump scare. You know that memory. You know there's going to be a jump scare, and she just had her head in her hands throughout those bits. But actually, he doesn't use that many jump scares. But yeah, I thought, it's a mood, right? Yeah, it's a mood, and I didn't look at my watch to see what time it was at any point, and I always do. I usually look at my watch, even if it's the best film in the world, about 15 minutes in. I'm like, God, I've got another 2 hours of this film that I'm really enjoying. I'm already out of pick and mix. But yeah, I thought it was great. And it was great to be in a cinema full of young people.
Yeah,
who
on day one.
Yeah, and afterwards, just hearing them all talking about it when they're coming out.
Yeah.
And you think, God, that's just what films used to be.
Yeah.
So I think, God, fair play to Kane Parsons.
And to A24, who really, because it's difficult to... there's something very, very different about what he did on YouTube to what they have created.
Oh, yeah. And be very exciting to see what he does next.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah.
I just thought I felt excited and that it was something different. And because I was slightly obsessed with those liminal spaces back those few years ago, I could see where it had come from, and I thought it was such an interesting way to surface that story.
Now do rom-coms, YouTube, please. That I'd like to see. Or heist movies. Oh, that's what I'd like. Come on, YouTubers, do some heist movies. There's not enough heist movies around.
Verticals will do heist movies.
Yeah, vertical heist movie in the tower block. And you've seen Obsession as well.
Yes, I really recommend seeing both films.
This episode is brought to you by Lloyd's. Now, I love it when characters are part of a club. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you, Richard?
The Thursday Murder Club in some ways reminds me of the A-Team.
I would now like to map each of those characters onto the A-Team and feel I probably could. I mean, Elizabeth is Hannibal and it's not even close.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Ron is Howling Mad Murdoch.
Well, there are definite perks to being in a club. Just ask the members of Club Lloyd's. Because with Club Lloyd's, you can bank on Lloyd's to give you more wherever you are.
If you join Club Lloyd's, there's all sorts of benefits you can choose between. There's, for example, 6 free cinema tickets.
They've got an annual coffee club and gourmet society membership, which would be mine.
And also something that the Thursday Murder Club would enjoy very, very much indeed.
Yes.
To top it all off, you have fee-free spending abroad, which means wherever you are, you won't be charged by Lloyd's to use your debit card when you're travelling. Now, joining this club costs £5 per month, but that is refunded in any month that you pay £2,000 into your account.
Now, that is a club that's worth being part of. Check out Club Lloyd's today. You'll need to be a UK resident and aged 18 or over to apply.
It's nearly that time, everyone. The Rest is Football will be on Netflix every day for the world's biggest tournament. Join myself, Alan and Micah for daily debates, unfiltered takes, and the most special of guests, all from the heart of New York City. Yeah, that's right. We're excited too. See you soon.
Welcome back, everybody. Now, MobLand. Tom Hardy. Should he stay or should he go? What's going on there?
There
Marina?
is drama on the set of MobLand.
Who'd have
A
thought?
drama. This is the Paramount show about an Irish crime family in London that was co-created by Ronan Bennett and Guy Ritchie, who directed some of the episodes of the first season. The showrunner and EP is Jez Butterworth.
One of our great playwrights.
Yeah, it stars Tom Hardy, but also Helen Mirren and Pierce Brosnan.
Friends of mine.
It's kind of held together by, I would say, having watched it, by the Tom Hardy performance. Anyway, but it's a huge hit for Paramount, really big hit for them. However, there's been some fallout. I read last week that Tom Hardy had been fired from MobLand, and it's a sort of like sudden spilling out of all this stuff. Tom Hardy was said to be very angry. He didn't love the scripts. He didn't love that it was becoming more of an ensemble piece, and his anger manifested itself. Again, all of this is reportedly and allegedly, because you'll see how undermined it becomes later on in the story. It manifested itself by him apparently offering lots of script notes on Jez Butterworth's scripts. Ronan Bennett and Jez Butterworth co-wrote the whole of the first season. I don't know if that's but anyway.
And by the way,
for season 2, this is what we're talking.
Just as a recap, Jez Butterworth wrote Jerusalem. He wrote some of the best plays of this century. He's been a writer forever. Ronan Bennett wrote Top Boy. Again, these are both people at the absolute top of their profession. Tom Hardy, a great actor.
Yeah.
So I don't know, who do you take script notes from? I would say the script writers.
He was staying in his trailer apparently, and he was being late for Pierce Brosnan and Helen Mirren.
Don't be late for Pierce and
It
Helen.
was described as career suicide. Anyway, the lateness thing supposedly particularly annoyed Dame Helen in some highly dubious bystander quotes that I read in the Daily Mail.
Do you mean made up?
Well, I'm just saying this is an insider who talks like all tabloid insiders.
Oh, that's interesting.
She expects better. She holds people to a high standard. She's 80. She's been there and seen it all. The behind-the-scenes crew watch it all and believe that she no longer looks as happy working on scenes with him. It has all become quite personal between them.
She's got a very interesting way of talking. It's like she's in Howard's End or something.
I agree, she talks exactly like a tabloid bystander, or it could have been a man. In fact, it would have been a man. We're going to get to that later. But Helen Mirren then unfortunately put a picture on Instagram of Tom Hardy, and she said, "Love you now and always," which seems to me like the bystander had got things a little bit wrong about the relationship those two.
That's unlike a bystander.
Also, it seems that maybe Tom Hardy hasn't actually been fired and that the producers are going to have a sit down with him and maybe they can work it all out. Richard, I would say two things. First, that this is very unusual that this much stuff has come out into the open.
Yeah.
And second, that this drama is so much better than MobLand. I mean, just enjoy it, right? It's
listen,
very, very watchable, this particular drama. Which I don't necessarily feel about MobLand.
I've not seen MobLand. I have to say that. I'll say this, which is
try and imagine the Makerfield by-election, but in a fictional TV show set in about some Irish gangs in London. It's sort of like that, or like those.
The thing I did notice is there's some big personalities involved. Jez Butterworth is a big personality. Guy Ritchie is a big personality. Tom Hardy is a big personality. There are 12 executive producers on that show. Let me count how many of them are men. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. All 12 of them are men. And you sense, that's the trouble often with men. If you get a group of men in a room, they get so emotional.
Well, that's what they get
so dramatic.
I am a huge supporter of the experiment, if I can call it that, of men in the workplace. I'm a huge supporter of it. I've been thrilled that they've had a go.
Yeah.
But I do sometimes wonder if they're too emotional for the performing arts. And I don't want to say that because, I love to think that people can buck their biology. But can they really have it all, Richard?
It doesn't look
Can
like
they have it all? No. There's so much testosterone on that set. If I walked on that set, I would grow a beard. That literally just by osmotically, I would absorb it.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a misconception about Tom Hardy and Guy Ritchie and Jez Butterworth. They don't actually have beards. They're clean shaven every single morning. And by lunchtime, they've got these fulsome things that you see them in because there's so much testosterone on that set.
The same with Guy Ritchie and Tom Hardy's accents.
Yes.
You talk to lots of people who went to school with them. And they're like, oh, that's interesting. They didn't used to speak like that.
Yeah, they did. It's something.
They didn't used to wear those caps.
There's something in the waters or in the something. And as I say, it's very, very watchable. We don't know how this will play out other than, as I say, I would love the experiment of men in the workplace to continue. So I hope everyone can work this out.
But it's happened lots of times before. It's interesting. If an actor is really badly behaved, that's what we're talking about here. When the story first comes out, you're like, oh my God, he must have been so badly behaved, because if you've got a big star like Tom Hardy, and he is brilliant. He's so watchable in everything he does. Look at him in Peaky Blinders, all sorts of things. He can really carry pretty much any scene he's in. So if you've got him in your show, then you're delighted. And the same with it, if you've got Pierce and Helen there as well, you're delighted.
But you want to keep him in your show if you're Paramount, because they need these big shows that go on and on and on.
Exactly.
And that you build up big libraries of, as they did with Yellowstone.
So you think, wow, you must have done something really, really awful. When the news first came out and said that he'd definitely been fired, now, of course, everyone's slightly backtracking and going, no, we're going to sit around a table and do this, that, or the other. So maybe it was just a warning shot. Because it doesn't happen very often that actors get replaced. Charlie Sheen, when he got replaced on 2.5 Men, the stuff he had to do to get fired was completely
I don't think
insane.
they would, but you can see that on another Paramount show. Look what happened on Yellowstone. Eventually, Taylor Sheridan, Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just wondering about that hormone, but there was so much butting of heads that he wasn't there for the end.
Yeah.
Kevin Costner.
Chevy Chase on Community again. You have to really,
He was really impossible.
Always read about Community. I think that was a troubled set in for lots and lots of different ways. But
I love the show so much. It's amazing what came out of it.
Yeah, it really is amazing. Isaiah Washington and Patrick Dempsey on Grey's Anatomy. Any of these shows
they've had a few
any of these shows that are ensembles, because that's the thing with actors is I think it's quite hard for them if they've got something that's an enormous success. It's quite hard for them to accept that success might not be down to them. I think Katherine Hagel was nominated for an Emmy for Grey's Anatomy, and she publicly asked to have her name removed because the work she had been given to do wasn't good enough. Which is she's saying to Shonda Rhimes, no, this is tat. She did later admit that was perhaps slightly unclassy, but it's quite hard. Roseanne Barr is another one that they, essentially she came back and then they removed her immediately, replaced her with every single other person came back from that show. They renamed it The Connors, and it continued. But you really have to do something pretty spectacular as an actor to get replaced on something. So I guess we'll watch this space with Tom Hardy and MobLand. But
as I say, it's very entertaining. Just enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. But it is, you just think maybe one executive producer who's a woman might be helpful. Do you know, by the way, the connection between MobLand and Backrooms that we talked about earlier?
No, I don't.
So in Backrooms, there are two characters who work with Chetel Ejiofor in the furniture store. You know the young stoner guy?
Yeah.
He is not American. He's English. He's Finn Bennett, and he is the son of Ronan Bennett, who writes
Really?
MobLand. Yeah. He's terrific as well.
He's very good.
Yeah, he's very good. But yeah, so there you go, a little connection. I won't always be able to do connections between our first two stories, but I have today.
I love that.
Have I blown your mind?
Yes, you have.
Yes. The more usual thing about actors being replaced, certainly way back when, is because they asked for too much money. My favourite example of that is Valerie Harper, who was on the sitcom Valerie in the 80s. Got paid a lot of money. It was a big hit, the first season of that. Asked for too much money, so they fired Valerie from Valerie and replaced it with someone else and called it Valerie's Family. That's bad. Wow. And also Monk, which is one of my favourite shows of all time. His assistant in the first few seasons disappears mid-season, completely disappears and is replaced. And she was amazing. And then you look it up, you go, oh, it would have been a huge hit, so all the male actors got a raise, and she didn't. So she asked for one, and they fired her. So there you go. But again, that's
showbiz.
That is showbiz. Yeah. Yes. Well, showbiz if you're a woman for sure. Talking of women, how's that for a segue?
I love it.
Belle Burden. Tell us about Belle.
Right. Belle Burden is the author of a book called Strangers, a memoir of her sort of disintegrated marriage. Now, it's been an absolute monster hit since it came out earlier this year. It's already going to be adapted as a film for Netflix, and Gwyneth Paltrow's going to start. Yeah. I know, she sort of plays just sort of meta versions. She's, since her on-retirement from acting, she's sort of playing ironic meta versions of herself, as far as I can see, that after that Marty Supreme role, which was sort of hilarious. Anyway, it is the story of an unexpected marriage split. If you haven't read it, I've actually just read the magazine serialization because I don't particularly read bullets like this. But it's a.
I thought you were going to say I don't particularly read books.
No, I don't.
I was going to say that's a hell of a.
It's a story of an unexpected marriage split. It's unexpected on her part.
True story, by the way.
A true story, yeah. He's a hedge funder. She is a stay-at-home mother. And during the pandemic, they decide to move from their New York place for lockdown, and they go to their waterfront house in Martha's Vineyard.
I'm going to say thus far I'm not sympathetic to either of them.
Well, yes. Okay. So and then during this time, the husband of a woman rings her to say that her husband is having an affair. Her husband leaves her and says, basically, you can keep the kids. She's completely hit for six emotionally.
He sort of leaves literally like the next morning without any. He just packs a bag and buggers off.
And goes.
Yeah.
And she's hit for six emotionally. That she tells this, as I say, I read the magazine serialization, which I thought was sufficient for me. But other people have been completely gripped by this book, and going through and saying, were there signs? But what she says is that she, part of the sort of stakes of the book is she going to go off a financial cliff edge? She's going to lose her house. She has a prenup, which her lawyer before marriage has sort of advised her not really to sign. And what's clear from this is that she has kind of given over aspects of her financial control to her husband. I have kept up with the feverish discourse of this.
Because I like a feverish discourse.
Yeah, there's now a new backlash. A New Yorker article came out saying that this wasn't the whole story, and that actually Belle Burden had concealed her wealth. She has a number of family trusts. She's basically worth tens of millions. So she was never really in what anyone normal would understand as any form of financial jeopardy. And some people are saying, oh, this fatally undermines the book. Others are saying, well, she wrote about a very rich lifestyle all the way through. They've got a waterfront house in Martha's Vineyard. Work it out. And anyway, the emotional truth and the devastation is the same. And she clearly didn't pay enough attention to her finances or whatever, which is interesting. But other people are saying, you have to disclose everything, and you haven't made it clear. So I think this is interesting. So Belle Burden has responded in a statement that says that she tried to own her privilege as much as she could when she wrote Strangers, but she feels like, the emotional truth of it is a book about her heartache and her betrayal.
Yeah,
and also that a reminder that we should all pay attention, women particularly, to finances within their marriage. One thing I will say about this, I've spoken by chance to a number of very rich women about this book since since it's come out.
Yeah.
They're all obsessed with it, like genuinely obsessed. And what I find fascinating is this kind of deep fear and the sense that they might they're gripped by the idea that she missed red flags in her own marriage.
Yeah.
Again, like, this is the grinding agonies of the super rich. A life of indolence can be quite exhausting
Yes,
because
you got a lot of time on your hands.
treating your marriage as a sort of detective story where you've got to keep, whereas the female labour in that marriage, because it's always the husband in these particular cases who are rich, have got to sort of keep an eye on, am I missing things? And maintaining this is almost like me maintaining the interiors of somewhere, keeping them up to date.
It's almost like owning a football club.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh God,
Yes.
I'm just the capriciousness of fate and of these.
And they have a sense, what I found extraordinary of the people I've spoken to, the sense that does jeopardy lie around the corner for them? So anyway, so to go back, like, okay, did she misrepresent it? I can see for her that she felt like there's such an ingrained class thing here that she wouldn't really be talking that. It's not the Kardashians where like all the money's up there on the screen and they want to talk about it all the time. She's a sort of waspish East Coaster who clearly has massive generational wealth.
Yeah, her grandmother was a famous magazine editor.
I don't know. She's from and so
she's from money.
I think and I think she makes it to most people fairly clear that she's got lots of money. Having said that, the book does keep suggesting that she might lose the house or not be able to buy her husband out of the house or whatever it is.
See, I think, again, this happens. Same as Salt Path. Well, I think Salt Path is slightly different because I think there were some factual inaccuracies there that were probably unacceptable. I think in the case of this, again, I've only read the sort of long-form extracts in various places, but it's really well written. As you say, it absolutely touches a nerve because it's not about, woe is me, I'm going to lose my house. It's about, have I been living with a psychopath all of this time? And did I misread things? Have I been an absolute idiot? I've been wrong about everything.
It's like an exhumation. It's like an autopsy, going back to try and see what happened.
And that is incredibly compelling to read. When she writes it, as you say, she is rich, but she doesn't particularly know that. If in the same way, sometimes rich people don't know that they're rich, but she's not professing poverty. There's obviously bits, as you say, where they say you're going to lose the house, but that to me is like the editor has said, and maybe a tiny bit
that's what I
jeopardy.
think we should talk about.
They didn't trust in the emotional honesty of I think the reason people love the book is because it's about, do I trust my partner? In a really,
I agree
really,
that's
really good way.
And it's weird that, and I bet it has come from the editor, that kind of the idea that...
Understandable.
Yeah. Often when you're writing fiction or you're writing even TV fiction and they don't understand the stakes for your protagonist, they always say, could she need money?
Yeah.
It's like one of the things that people always say, could she have some sort of financial pressure put on her?
You will never ever see a show where a good person is moved to crime where they don't have a relative in a care home.
Yeah.
Saying, but
exactly.
to keep it here, we need another 11 grand. I got no way of getting it. And he goes, hold on, didn't I have a chat yesterday with that guy who said I could smuggle some gold for him?
Okay, so let's get on to who the editor is. The editor is someone at Dial Press, which is a Penguin Random House imprint. I don't think we would be talking about this quite so much had this editor also been the editor for another memoir that was huge but has since suffered a really big backlash. And I'm going to talk about that one because, my goodness, that was The Tell by Amy Griffin. Amy Griffin is honestly one of America's richest women. She had illegal, because these things are not legal or not yet legal, although her husband is a big investor in psychedelics firms, she had illegal MDMA-assisted regression therapy. Her memoir is about her recovered memory of being raped multiple times by her school teacher when she's in middle school, so starting when she's about 12. Now, this book was picked by Oprah for her book club, picked by Reese Witherspoon for her book club, picked by Jenna Bush Hager for her book club. It was on the bestseller list for a long time. Since then, a lot of questions have arisen, including one former schoolmate is suing, saying, these are my memories and you've stolen my story, saying she was the rape victim. And it wasn't this teacher at all. It was a different teacher. The teacher who Amy Griffin effectively, people have been able to identify him because you can work. Yeah. There's never been any other complaints against him. He, I think, has had to sort of go into hiding. Both of these books, Belle Burden's one and Amy Griffin's one, were edited by someone called Whitney Frick at Dial Press, who understandably now is receiving quite a bit of pushback. What she said about when Amy Griffin's memoir began to be questioned was, book publishers are not investigators. This is Amy's story. We trust her and all of our authors that they are recounting their memories truthfully. Well, okay, this is a recovered memory under like psychedelics, but okay.
And also this was exactly what they said about Salt Path. They said, no, we have to trust the author.
I have to say that I think that if you know your book, a book might be big, and lots of people have said this over the last week, if you know a book might be big and it might have a couple of monster hits, I always say there is always a backlash because people do remember things differently. Maybe we're all unreliable narrators and we can get to that. But if you know that book, why can't they be fact-checked to some degree? And that is a protection for the author as much as for the reader or whatever it is. I've got a theory as to why this is. A bit of a...
Okay, I have a commercial theory, but
about why there's a memoir fakery issue at the moment.
About why publishing never checks. Publishing Never Checks by Richard Osman. No, I honestly think that no one expects any books to be a hit. I think when something comes in like this, they will do everything they can to make something a hit because hits are so few and far between in publishing. I mean, vanishingly few and far between. 1 in 30 books might turn a profit. 1 in 60 might be like a phenomenon. And so statistically, the book you are currently working on, the Belle Burden book, is not going to be a hit.
No, but these books got massive advances.
But it doesn't matter.
If you're paying that much in advance, I think you should pay for some form of fact-checking because you've actually essentially backed yourself.
Yeah.
If you're giving multi-millionaires already a big advance and there's a bidding war, then you are backing yourself to say, I think this will be a hit. As much as I can know anything in publishing, which is not a lot, as you say, then in which case, why not invest in something that can help the author as well? Because actually, it's not clear that Belle Burden at all felt she was misrepresenting anything.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't sound like she was particularly.
Do influencers misrepresent? They give us, they sort of invite us into their lives, but they sort of don't. And they curate and they, downplay some things and they amp up others. And
I think if you're Raina Wynn and Salt Path and you're saying you don't have a property and you do, that's one thing. I think if you're saying I did,
there's a number of things with that one.
If you're saying I did worry, I worried about my financial security and the financial security of my children, I'm sure she did. I mean, if anyone else in her situation wouldn't, because she's obviously backed up by quite a lot of money. But I imagine that's definitively what she felt. So
if you're saying I've had my memories recovered,
that's different.
Come on, is this not a red flag for a publisher?
I would have thought on that case, yes, I definitely would have thought so. But again, they're probably thinking, well, this is unsuable because she's telling us that she had her memories recovered. And as you say, they go, oh no, you'll never identify that guy. And that's the problem is we live in a world where you can identify anyone now. Anyone is going to be identified.
And so therefore, this is something that it must be. We said this with the Salt Path. You're going to have to catch up with this world.
Baby reindeer.
Yeah. Yes.
It's the same thing keeps happening.
But I think the boom in memoirs, and obviously some of those are going to have question marks over them. I always think of it as like the My Truth era. The books we're seeing published now or quite recently, they were probably bought at a point where the absolute moment of peak woke. US publishing in particular became so woke that even fiction was kind of fraught with danger. Like, can you really ventriloquize the person of a different race?
Yep.
Can you, of different gender, a different sexuality? In the end, you get to the point where first-person articles or memoir are the safest genre.
Because you mustn't deny anyone's truth.
You can't deny anyone's truth. The act of fiction itself is almost political and not in a good way.
Yeah.
So what you're left with is people saying, my first-person story, very powerful, etc.
So not this is a thing that happened to someone. This is the thing that happened to me.
I'm allowed
I can
to
talk
tell
about
my
it because I
truth,
am me.
And no, I'm not allowed to tell any other truth. No one else is allowed to tell anyone else's. And I think that lots of these books were commissioned during that time and where a particular sensibility was abroad, where almost nobody can pretend to be anything.
Yeah.
And actually what's ironic is that some of these people seem to have been pretending. Some of the powerful quote-unquote first-person pieces seem to have been the least reliable and most questionable of all.
I mean, does any of us truly know ourselves?
No, probably not. But I think it's a function of that particular era where memoir felt like a really safe genre because it couldn't suddenly become cancelled because everyone was saying, how on earth can someone pretend to be a Mexican woman, or how on earth can someone
Which is crazy because if you or I tell an anecdote about someone else it's usually fairly factual, or they will ramp up certain bits. If we tell an anecdote about ourselves, that's the biggest lie we've ever told. I mean, honestly, the spin we put on that. And then, I guess there was 5 guys with knives, and they were all coming at me, and it just is absolute nonsense. The worst lies you tell are the lies about yourself.
I agree.
Any recommendations, Marina?
Yes. I've been banging on about microdramas and thinking, someone clever and someone brilliant. Yeah. Even though there's a lot that I've had sex with my billionaire CEO werewolf boss. I
know that, but we were talking about microdramas, so we shouldn't. Sorry. I know this whole first person confessional is like,
it's powerful though.
That'll be
powerful.
That'll be in the Express.
Yeah. So Issa Rae, who is the brilliant creator of Insecure and has now turned her attention to microdrama. She's produced a 57-episode vertical microdrama called Screen Time that's about sort of 2 couples that are on a double date and things turn very weird. There's a hacking situation. I looked yesterday and it had 160 million views on TikTok. This is the first breakout, one of these things that is completely, a very recognised creator who's brilliant has done it. People have been completely gripped by it. And it's the first one on TikTok that has kind of blown up in this way. Because there are all these other platforms, as I've talked to you about before, like things like Real Short or whatever. Which are... or Crunchyroll's anime, but things like Real Short that are specifically dedicated microdrama platforms. But this is done on TikTok. It's a recognized creator, and it has blown up completely. It's called Screen Time. Have a look.
And I would say if you add the success of that, which is a phenomenon, to the success of Backrooms and Obsession, we are in a moment. I would say a transitional moment. It's not even a transitional moment. The transitional moment was 2 years ago. Now we're seeing that we were in a transitional moment, and nothing goes back to what it was, which is why sometimes the things we talk about building, BBC and all the different public service broadcasters together, why it's so important now, because the fight is not what it was. It's not all these channels are against each other. It's the whole world has completely changed. And if we want some of the traditional jobs and some of the traditional media we've had, we have to understand that everything has changed. I'm going to talk about traditional media, though, because I just finished this latest series of Amandaland, which is superb and reminds you of what terrestrial television at its very, very best can do. Beautifully written, beautifully acted, so British, so funny, very, very charming, feels fresh, feels new. Amandaland, 6 episodes, series 2. It's just, what tis joy to be alive in such a time that is made. But everything has already changed. Things are not changing. Everything has already changed, and we just all have to get our mind around that.
But lots of it is incredibly exciting.
Exactly that. There's still brilliant people working. Creatives are still doing the same things they were always doing. There's probably more money now for creators. There's probably more money for young creatives who didn't have an entry into the industry. There are lots of ways in which this new world is better than the old world, but we also have to try and protect and bulwark the bits of the old world which we know work.
Right.
On that bombshell.
On that clarion call, we will be back on Thursday with our questions and answers edition. And for our members, there's the third part of my series in which I was talking to James Canagasorium. I don't want to say, is Taylor Swift a basic bitch, but it's saying, is everything becoming generic? And if so, why?
Are we all basic bitch?
Is everything we all becoming basic?
I definitely am. I'm not becoming it. That's how I started.
But it's a very interesting chat about genericism. That's, if you want to join and for ad-free listening and bonus episodes, it's therestisentertainment.com. Otherwise, we'll see you on Thursday.
See you on Thursday.